You will recall that last Sunday we began reading a section from the Gospel of St. John, even though it is the year of St. Mark. St. Mark's Gospel is much shorter than the other Gospels, and so in the midst of the summer we take 5 weeks out to read just one chapter of St. John's Gospel, which discusses the Eucharist. The chapter of the Gospel which we're reading over the next 5 weeks is the second longest chapter in the New Testament, second only to St. Luke's first chapter when he talks about all that led up to and the birth of Jesus Christ. Today, in St. John's Gospel, in this chapter of 71 verses, we hear a section about why Christ came: to bring us his body, to give us his blood. The purpose of his coming is manifested in the gift of the Eucharist. And the liturgy divides this into 5 parts, so let's just take a very brief look at what these 5 parts are. Last Sunday it was the story of the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes, a story that appears in all 4 Gospels. Jesus fed 5,000 people with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. And this was seen as a very, very important event. And it helps people of faith to move into an understanding of the Eucharist. St. John, for example, tells us that before the bread was distributed, Jesus prayed and gave thanks. In the original Greek, the word for giving thanks is Eucharist. And the point of the story is that Jesus had something more in mind than just ordinary food. And then this Sunday, the scene shifts from the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus worked that first miracle, not the first miracle, but the first section of the Gospel, from the Sea of Galilee to the synagogue at Capernaum, where Jesus preached a sermon on the Eucharist. Jesus began the sermon by calling for faith in himself, the one whom God had sent into the world. Such faith is necessary since accepting the Eucharist depends entirely on the words of Jesus Christ. Next Sunday, the sermon continues. And in the sermon, Jesus makes the transition from faith in himself to faith in the gift of the Eucharist. One faith must lead to another. And then on the 4th Sunday, Jesus proclaims his doctrine. He declares in no uncertain terms, "The bread that I will give is my flesh for the life of the world." And after there's a negative reaction from the crowd, he speaks even more emphatically, "My flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink." The final Sunday presents a challenge. People may not remain indifferent to the promise of Jesus. Once they have heard his teaching, they must either accept it or reject it. St. John tells us that many of the disciples broke away and would not remain in his company any longer. Even the apostles had to make up their mind. Jesus asked them, "Do you want to leave too?" And Peter responded, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." It's important to look at those 5 Sundays together. the entire chapter of St. John's Gospel. And perhaps if you're looking for something different to do on a rainy Sunday afternoon or during the week, you could pull out your family Bible, sit down, and read the entire chapter all in one sitting. Only 72 verses. But it pulls it all together and shows how important it is for us to constantly rekindle and renew our faith in the Eucharist, the bread of life. Reading it all together helps us understand and appreciate the doctrine of the Eucharist, which the liturgy will unfold for us. Last Sunday, today, and in the next 3 weeks.